Oh, welcome back to the Fit Fuzz podcast, episode number 33. Still not get music, but it still is in the works. I guarantee you it is coming, it is happening. I've been in touch with Dave. It seems like things are in the kind of latter stages. I never realised how much goes into production of music. It's fucking wild.
I love how you started that, mate. It sounded like it was a Pirates podcast kicking off a whole piece.
What's happening? How you been?
Good, mate. Busy, busy, busy. We're over in Glasgow for both parents' 60th birthdays. They're turned 60 within 2 weeks of each other, but taking the wee man over for the first time, both parents being divorced, that actually makes things quite difficult because you're just going between house to house to different sides of the family to different sides of the family. Just saying to you before we started recording, think I need a wee bit of a holiday after being on holiday, but yeah, mate, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I also feel like I need a bit of a holiday, but it's for different reasons to you because this fucking house move is taking over my life. I actually booked a couple of days off the gym this week just to get stuck into it. But see that way, when you do one job and you feel delighted with it, you end up finding another two jobs that need done. So it's like one step forward, two steps back.
I, Mate, I don't know. Like, I feel like you can tell that we're in our 30s recording this podcast because we're both just talking about like families and houses and renovating and stuff. If we'd done this 10 years ago, we'd be talking about, I don't know, going on holiday with the boys and doing, I don't know, watching the Euros, like the exciting stuff.
Asking, asking if you got to the garage tonight.
Got the garage. Is that still open?
I've no idea, mate. I cannot remember the last time I was on Sauchiehall Street.
I heard it's not doing too well these days. Sauchiehall Street is closing down quite a campus is reopening right enough, but yeah, don't know.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Aye. God knows where that is now because that it moved, didn't it? Campus moved along here. I think it was, I could be wrong here, could be all classrooms or something like that.
Remember we both went out with a tenner each and came back steaming with change? Like that's good old days. I think we went to Driftwood and there was like 69p vodka and coke,
Oh,
whatever. Like you could get eight of them and come back with change. And then we knew somebody at
aye.
the bar as well. We went out with a tenner, came back with change, steaming. Great times.
It's brilliant, man. Back in the day when we could go to a tenner and we still get something to eat on the way up the road as well.
I could possibly understand why it's not a sustainable business model and why they are closing down.
100%. I seen a meme the other day and I was laughing at it and it actually made me think about like when I was younger and we were out fucking three, four times a week, but it was like can I have two Jaeger bombs, please? And the barman says, oh, it's free for a fiver. Well, geez 15 then, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, geez 9 then, mate. Sorry, I fucked it. Geez 9 then, mate.
To be fair, after you have mine, you may as well just go for the 15.
Aye, 100%, 100%. Sorry, I fucked that up there, man, because I am still obviously half asleep.
That's all right, mate. What was I going to say? You going to be supporting Switzerland this evening?
Oh, you fucking know it. I'm going to look at my finest red top.
Do you know what? I've got a Scotland top, I've got a Portugal top, and I'm pretty sure I had an Italy top. Yeah, I've got an Italy top. And I was like, I've not got any tops to wear for the Euros anymore. We're gone. We're out of tops.
Man, see, since we've got into the knockout stages, it's been shite, innit?
I was saying that to Jen last night. Like, it was literally, I had it on in the background, just wanted to see Ronaldo in his last tournament, and so I was just sitting there going, "This is absolutely shite." I was like, I don't know if it's the build up of games that they've got, like how many games they play nowadays and everything else. But I'm like, at the end of the season, having this, it's just looking like a slog. Like, there's no excitement in these games
Mhm.
whatsoever. Like the Spain one before as well, shite. They're all shite.
Aye. Teams are setting up to not get beat rather than to go out and win.
I've not seen a team that looks like they're out and out favourites. Whereas I think 10 or 15 years ago, like sure, when Spain won it in 2008 and 2010 or whatever it was, like they looked I mean they looked unstoppable. There was nobody stopping. But even Germany back then were a decent side and everything else. And you look how strong they were. I don't want to look at through like nostalgia. like back in my day, but at the same time, it does seem like it's a wee bit different nowadays. I'm like, I don't
I,
actually know who half a fucking Spain team are these days. Like,
I know, 100%. But I just think, do you know, obviously after watching that game last night and stuff as well, and the presenters were talking about like having, I think it was Rio Ferdinand that mentioned it. He's like, just do away with extra time because you're just wasting the players' energy, especially after a long season and how many games they get asked to play in a season. Extra time is pointless because when extra time comes round, apart from obviously Spain winning it with a fucking minute to go in extra time, the teams then just seem to want penalties because they're knackered, they're tired, and then Jermaine Genius came in with like, I but the Qatar World Cup wasn't like that. Like extra time in the World Cup final was amazing, but that get played mid-season, that get played in the winter, so the players were still fresh. So I definitely, I don't know. I think it might not be a bad idea just to go straight to pens after 90 minutes. What do you think?
well, the Qatar Cup final was fixed so that Messi would win it anyway. So I'm just going to throw it out there. That's not to be looked at. But I don't know. It's a hard one. It's easy saying it right now, and I agree with the point. But at the same time, like imagine it was your team. Like imagine don't know, Scotland actually turned up and played football, and they got to like extra time, the first ever last 16 game or whatever, like, or it went to 90 minutes against, I don't know, let's say we were playing fucking, don't know, Germany, and we went to 90 minutes, it was about to go to extra time. You're like, you probably would prefer to play the game out rather than have like the just a lottery shootout, but I do get the point. Like it does drag things out. There was nothing like you knew last night when you were watching the Portugal game, Spain game, or sorry, the Portugal France game. You just knew straight away. I was like, this is going to like I had it written all over it. It was like, there's no way unless it's a fluky penalty, a handball, or something. There's not going to be a goal in this.
I think Rachel's dad called it in about the 34th minute. He's like, this has got penalties written all over it.
Good, right? It's sad when you see that, isn't
I know. I should have listened to him and get a wee bit of 365 and play bet on.
it? Moving chat away from the football, how are you getting on with your fitness and stuff? Because you're documenting stuff for a wee bit, but things have been busy. What's the crack?
Aye, so there was about 3 to 4 weeks where I think we spoke about it in the last podcast. There was about 3 to 4 weeks where I was just, living off takeaways and convenience food and barely training and all that sort of carry on. So I was like, right, time to screw the napper, time to get my head back in the game. Started documenting my food on Instagram, and it was good because I was getting a lot of good feedback off the back of it, especially with like people I work with inside 12X. I like this is really helping me, overcome my kind of emotional attachment to the scales. It's helping me see that my fluctuations are completely normal, and that was great. I'm not gonna lie, 2 weeks and I couldn't keep it up. The mental capacity that it was taking up. I trained for a week and the house just took over again. I was getting all worked up, I was getting stressed out, and I'm like, nah. Um, Obviously the intention was there. I wanted to get myself back in the game. I knew it would have made me feel better. And for that week that I was training, I felt great. But we really upped the ante with the work in the house because we're trying to move in as soon as possible. So something had to give again, and unfortunately, it was like training and food as well. Like I've been living off meal deals for fucking Tesco. Um, I've not been getting as many takeaways as what I was the first time round. I've actually been getting Rachel's parents have been cooking back dinner and stuff, keeping us going, which is nice. But it's been pretty full on, so I've had to just kind of take a step back for training again, which I'm no delighted about. It's just something that has to be done in this moment. So it's a bit shitty, but we'll get there. Once I'm in the house, I'm going to hit it hard. I mean, I say I'm going to hit it hard. Actually, we got a physio, man. I don't know if you remember. Before I finished up with you, I said I had a wee niggle in my arm.
That was the wanking injury you had, wasn't it?
It was a wanking injury. I sat on my hand for too long. I was trying to make it feel like it was somebody else. Get people walking
I,
about the dining room and I'm making jokes.
I love how you had a look over your shoulder there as you're sitting on your
I
hand at the moment.
aye, so that started to really bother me. It's been about 3.5 months I've had it for, and it's just got gradually worse. Like I could be standing texting or on my phone, whatever, and see when I go to put my arm back down and put my phone in my pocket, it's just extremely uncomfortable. So I think before I hit training hard again, I'm going to need to get that looked at.
Yeah, it's probably best to get that dealt with, mate. Um,
100%. And my knees are fried as well. Like, obviously, I keep saying obviously, it's no obvious. I'm hypermobile. People might not know that listen to the podcast. So I kind of like, I'm hypermobile all over my body. So my joints are absolutely knackered, but I can't lock my knees out. So, like, I would show you on the camera if I could, but essentially, like, people can just lock their knees out and stand up straight and they can stand there for a while, but my knees kind of go back the way. And it puts a lot of strain on the back of my knees. And because I've been standing, painting, I've been in work, I've been walking, my knees have just taken an absolute beating as well. So when I get out of bed in the morning, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig. But I know I'm not doing myself any favors as well by not eating right food. No, I'm not kind of labeling food right and wrong, but nutritious food. I'm going for convenience food meal deals where there's a lack of vegetables, there's a lack of fruit. So I'm not doing myself any favors with regards to that, but I know it's not forever. It's just a final wee push for these next couple of weeks, and then we can get into the house and start to sort my life out again. Um, but yeah, enough about me, mate. What about you? Obviously, you've been over Glasgow. Did you get much training done? What is your goals just now? What you're training towards? Are you training towards anything? Are you just trying to stay in shape to feel good?
what's training, mate? I don't even know what training is
I
anymore.
suppose, man. Making
Uh,
that adjustment to daddy life, eh?
no, mate. Before Finn was born, I kind of overshot things because I knew that, like, as much as had been warned, I didn't probably anticipate how tough it was. But I actually was probably in one of the best shapes I've been before Finn was there, and I was doing that on purposely, giving myself a bit of a buffer for what when it happened. And to be honest, after he was born, because it kind of happened 6 weeks earlier, if anything, I had so much still scheduled work wise and everything else. It actually ironically kept me in routine because it was like I have the marathon that was planned. I have a few things that's going, so it was just a case I had to keep going. But actually, over the last couple of weeks, just with the whole family thing. I've had family over here. We've had doctor's appointments. We've had going over to Glasgow. It's actually been like I've lost 2 or 3 days every week. And obviously, being self employed, it's not like when you take 2 or 3 days off, you need to then work that the other days. So it was like, it's just been really full on. I have kept up habits and routines of movement, and I've still gone to the gym twice a week. But sure, the bigger issue I also have as well is like I've also not got a coach at the moment, which is actually going to bring me to the point. But what was I going to say? It's just one of those ones. I was for a couple of weeks. I was just kind of programming myself and going through the motions, still doing a bit, but um, bit similar to yourself. I knew it was coming to a point where I was like, look, realistically, I'm just going to have to like.
Mhm.
I've built a bit of a balance for myself. I've got a few weeks of just things being a little bit looser. To be fair, towards the back end of last week, it got a lot looser where like meals out were high, content consumption was a bit higher. But came to an end 2 days ago. Back on it now. I'm actually because I've got no major goals at the moment, being honest, which is also a bit of an issue because I think with no major
Yeah.
goals, you kind of just you float a bit. But I do have at the back end of the year, there's High Rocks I'm just doing as a doubles this time in November time. I want to get back into some form of like powerlifting, not to the point where I'm competing or anything, but I just want to start moving the numbers again. But right now, I've fallen, but you know, as much as I made a bit of a bank balance for my or balance with my kilos, I've put that on and then some. So I'm actually reached out to Shannon. I was like, Shannon, see for the next 3 months, I'm going to get you to coach me just to take us through the motions. So she's probably got burpees and fucking like don't know the bleep test or something sorted for me for Monday. So that's what's happening there.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be good. But I know what you're saying about the not having anything to work towards because I think that's uh, one of my issues as well. Just no goals, no plans, nothing to really push myself for. So it's so much easier to kind of let yourself go, if that makes sense. What we do have to do though is we need to book this Ironman and lock it in.
Yeah, mate, we do need to do that. Have you looked at, like, again, it is going to happen, but just out of sheer curiosity, have you looked at the price point of bikes, mate?
But no.
Yeah, look, I get saving it.
Well, I'm lucky enough to know a cyclist, and he's offered me. Wait, he did offer me a loan of a bike to do the Land's End to John O'Groats because that is on the cards for next year as well. Um, so I could maybe ask him, sweet talk him if he's listening. John, let me know if you're listening.
John, if
Um,
you've got a mate as well,
but aye, I've not actually looked at the price point of bikes, but I've heard they're pretty fucking expensive.
yeah, it's a couple of grand. Like you're talking. I mean, to be fair,
Aye,
it's cycle, so like it'll get done, but it's just more of a case of I either need to tell Jen about this or hide it from Jen. But either way, that comes with its own issues. So
100%.
I say that as you
What
sit.
we can do, right? What we can do to get around it is buy each other it as a Christmas gift.
100%. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, it was a present. Gary means a lot
Present, there
to
we
me.
go. And we need to get one of those kind of swimsuit things. Do we need to wear a wee hat?
Oh, no. Oh, here's the thing. See, in Ireland, see when you go to any indoor pool, you need to wear a swim hat.
Right. I think we might need to wear one because it's open water. And wear one of those kind of swimming suits, and we need to get a good pair of running shoes as well. So I cannot wait to tell Rachel how much is coming out of the bank balance.
Do you know what? The only thing that actually
Again,
gives me the fear is the swimming part of it.
are you not a strong swimmer?
Well, mate, I can swim. Like I've done lifeguarding, I've done all that stuff before, but it's the open water part of it. I'm like, it's a different kettle of fish there. You can train all you
Yeah.
want in a pool. It's not directly transferable to going out into open water. Like,
Aye, just watch a few Ross Edgley videos for some inspiration.
yeah, his tongue dissolving. That was class.
Aye,
You see that?
when he swam, when he swam round the UK. Did you see his most recent one?
I think this was about 2 weeks ago or something, was it?
He was it Canada he was in? I think it was in like the Yukon in Canada, and it was like the longest non-stop swim. It was like 50 odd hours or something like that.
I think it was actually longer than that. I think it was
Was it?
without sleeping, stopping, or touching land. I think it was it was a good stint anyway. I did see it on his gram. Yeah,
Let me see. I'm just going to look it up. Ross Edgley, uh, non-stop swim. 510 kilometers without stopping, sleeping, or touching land, 62 hours. If you haven't seen this yet, anybody that's listening, go have a look at his Instagram, or even his Facebook, because his face after it. Did you see the photo or the video of his face?
not
He,
that.
oh man, he looks terrible. I think he gained something like 10 kilos of fat. I could just be pulling numbers at my arse here, but I'm sure he gained like 10 kilos of fat. And he specified fat, not muscle. And that was just for insulation to keep him warm because the Yukon is cold. Like it was like icy waters. I think it was like 9 degrees or something like that. So that's pretty cold to be swimming in for 60 odd hours. So yeah, he gained that extra bit of insulation to keep him a wee bit warm. And yeah, 62 hours is mental. I couldn't even stay awake for 62 hours, never mind doing something physical for 62 hours.
Fat floats as well, so it could help that way. But have you read his book where he talked about swimming through the perimeter of the UK where he had a jellyfish stuck to his head and he didn't actually know?
Ah,
Good man.
aye. It just kept going. There was another interesting thing as well about his swim around the UK. He didn't use his legs. It was all arms. Did you know that?
No.
Just to do it was essentially just to conserve energy. It was just yeah, just kind of floating along, just using arms instead of using legs. Because if he was to use his legs, he would get tired quicker. Um, Yeah, it's an interesting watch. He's got the documentaries on YouTube. I think it's sponsored by Red Bull or something like that, but it's a very interesting watch. But he ended up with like big holes in his neck and stuff because his swimsuit was just rubbing. Obviously parts of his tongue was falling off because of the salt. But yeah, you couldn't pay me any money to do shit like that.
I'd like to have a conversation, go, what's going on in your life that you wanted to swim around the perimeter of the UK without stopping and allow your tongue to dissolve through salt water? Like,
Oh,
let us know.
absolutely crazy. Absolutely mental. But yeah, swam through jellyfish. I actually had was it I don't know if it was dolphins or something that came up and kind of swam with them for a wee bit as well, which would have been a cool experience. And I watched a video of him crossing like a really busy, I don't know what you would call it, ship highway from one of the docks down in the South of England, and he had to time it because these ships were just fucking powering back and forward. So, I fair play to the lad, fair play to the lad.
Shit motorway class. I don't actually have the
Ship.
alternative to that, mate. I was thinking a port, but I don't think it's a port if it's not actually by the. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're not going to get into the
Aye.
semantics of that.
I don't even know how we got into that topic there.
I was Iron Man booking it and having training goals.
Oh, that's right,
And
that's right.
I I actually think a lot of the time that's why it's super important for people to have training goals and being guilt.
Mhm.
I think doing this longer and working with other people, I can start to identify patterns as to like when things are going to work and when they're not. And usually when I've got a person I'm working with and they're not overly clear as to where they want to go, I'm like, without a clear direction usually leads to slightly less clear inputs. And then with slightly less clear inputs, ultimately you don't get any sort of momentum and ultimately you just end up in this. I've felt for the last couple of weeks, I'm like, I'm in that wee bit of a valley at the moment where I'm like, I don't really have anything that's, yes, I need to drop a couple of kilos, but I mean, I can do that. Yes, I probably need to get, again, a wee bit stronger, but I'm like, right now, the short term of, we've got a night out or a day out with my dad. We've got this happening with my mum. I've got this happening. That short term is always winning at the moment, which then leads to small behaviours. Like we got home the other day and it's like, oh, we'll just get a takeaway. Oh, it'll be the last takeaway. But then you wake up
Mhm.
next day and you're shattered. It's like, oh, well, I've got this in the fridge and we need to get rid of this. And we've not got any shopping in yet. And it's like, it's led into a couple of days, I'm like, or even a couple of weeks now, and I'm like, these behaviours are the small behaviours that if I'm not careful, the only goal that I'm going to have again is fat loss because I'm going to be about 110 kilos. So I need to, I need to dial that in. Oh, I have already went to shop. I've dialed it in. I've got started. I got started yesterday. That's all happening again. But I think it is important to have like actual quantifiable goals. Whereas there's a short fat loss phase that's been looked at the moment that needs to happen simply because if I keep putting it off, it's just going to get further and further away. We'll tidy up there. I'll get back into. I think sometimes even for goals, what are the behaviours that you need to get back into? And I think for me, I need to start tracking my food all the time again because
Mhm.
it's got very loose and it's one untracked meal leads me into two, into three, into four, into a week, into right, I've not tracked and I feel terrible. And again, a lot of people say, or a lot of people who don't track food, they're like, oh, it's restrictive. Or I would argue the opposite, where I'm like, when you track food, that
Aye.
gives you more autonomy over your food because you know you can get away with. For me, a Domino's pizza every week and not feel bad about it. I enjoy it. I feel good about it. I can have a few cans where I want because I know it's fitted in. Whereas I've not tracked for 3 weeks now and I actually feel fucking miserable because I'm like, I'm eating what I want, but I'm eating comfort food because I feel terrible right now. I need to get back on it. Like,
And that comfort food makes you feel good in the moment, but then it leads to you feeling even more terrible the next day because you end up feeling shitty, you feel hungover, you're a bit bloated. I mean, I'm saying you feel hungover, it's like a food hangover. I don't know if you get this, but I tend to get it like pizza, Chinese, something like that. I genuinely feel like I've just had a big bag of cans the night before. It hits different as well if it's hangover. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Like that's the first thing I do when I know I need to kind of sort my shit out is I get straight back to tracking my food. Um, when I got back to tracking my food a couple of weeks ago, I never actually set myself a calorie target. I just thought I'm going to track my food, see what I like, see how much I bring in on a daily basis. But just tracking my food actually kept me just in a deficit, just because I was kind of seeing what I was bringing in rather than just reaching my hand in the biscuit tin, just going for a wee bit of ice cream when I felt like it, just going for a KFC instead of making my own meals. It just let me put a cap on things. And I also agree with you with the whole kind of tracking your food is restrictive. It's fucking not. It's
Yep,
not. It's educative. Is that a word? Did I just make a word up?
that sounded good, mate.
Fantastic. I'll take it. So it's educative.
I,
I need
I,
to check.
I
And
put money on it. In fact, it's not a word, but it sounded good.
so yeah, like I don't see it as being restrictive. And in reality as well, if you are needing a bit of a tidy up and you're having to lose a wee bit of body fat, you have to restrict your calories. So what is the difference between restricting your calories through tracking or not tracking?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Well, the thing is with tracking is you can get a good idea of how many calories you're actually bringing in rather than just guessing. Because if you're guessing, I can guarantee you 99 times out of 100, you're fucking wrong.
I would say that I put my hands up. I have never met a person who says that calorie counting is restrictive who's in good shape. Controversial statement, but I will go with. I said this to someone before. It's usually somebody that, yeah, they're not in a great position themselves.
Yeah.
And I would 100% agree. I think if you're not controlling food, you're being controlled by it. There's always one or two. So if
Mhm.
you're if you don't have, it's the easiest time in the world to get in shape, but it's also the easiest time in the world to get fat because foods are just so built differently these days, and it's so easy to pick up something that is super high in calories that you've no idea about, and it's easy to eat multiple meals each day. There's no want or need for us to walk or move or do anything because the world we live in doesn't. For most people, you don't need to, and it's very easy to get high amount of calorie foods. If you aren't
Mhm.
willing to make decisions, even if it's for a short period of time, to actually see what's going in, what's going out, and getting an education around food, you're being controlled by it. That's my controversial but accurate opinion.
I'm for it, mate. I'm all for it. I think, excuse me, the whole, I know we talk about tracking calories a lot in this, but we're very, very big on it. I think the biggest thing that puts people off tracking is it's footery. And, you know, I work with kind of a lot of kind of, don't want to say older, but I would say middle-aged women who might not be a whiz on a phone and trying to input, you know, specific ingredients to what they're having for their dinner can be annoying. It can be annoying, but tracking is a skill, or it's like a skill. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. It's not going to be easy at first. It is going to be footery. You're going to get things wrong, but that's how you learn. And just using it's restrictive as an excuse because you can't be bothered learning, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. And I agree with Kyle as well. You're being controlled by food.
I think there's a cost to everything. I think this is actually part of the issue of, I feel like I'm going into the bigger politics here, but I think part of the issue that we're seeing is, again, the world we live in, it's so easy to get like a lot of things that you get a massive like dopamine hit from straight away. Like you go on Instagram, you can feel good just by looking at things. You go to like you can order food that makes you feel good. You don't need to move. You don't need to do anything to actually feel good. Like it's just so easy to like feel good if you want. There's an outlet for all of it, but actually there's a kind of lost art of actually having to put that kind of you pay the cost first. And I think with tracking food, you do need to pay the cost first in the sense that it's got a little bit of a barrier to entry. Like you do need to learn the skills. You're going to make mistakes, but like the payoff is the fact that you'll have autonomy over food. You'll be able to control that. You'll never need to go for a diet the rest of your life. You can get away with the foods that you want to get away with, and you can manipulate that to whatever your goal is. The cost is obviously learning how to do it. But on the opposite end of that, if you don't learn it, the cost is the fact you're always going to be controlled by food and you're probably never going to feel great. And you're also going to be that person who keeps on telling people that pizza and chips are bad for you. So,
You feel good after that?
yeah, 100%.
No, I love that. I love that. I'm for it. Right, let's kind of turn away from calorie counting because we do talk about it quite a lot. I know I'm a massive advocate say it. Unless there's something else that you want to throw in there before.
No, mate, about 90% of my job's just calorie counting. The rest is
I know.
mate. So I've not really got much else to add, but go on, mate. You change the subject.
No, I agree with you as well. 90% of the job is calorie counting, and I would say the other 10% is getting other people to calorie count.
100%.
No, why don't we focus on something, I don't know, something a wee bit more productive? Why don't we start talking about how to the most efficient or optimal ways to actually build muscle? I feel like that's a topic that we've no really touched on. We've spoke about training, we spoke about kind of splits and stuff, but we've not actually spoke about in detail how to build muscle.
Okay. Why would you want to build
You
muscle?
up for it?
Yeah. Why would you want to build muscle in the first place, Gary? Give us it.
Oh, one, it makes you feel good. Two, it makes you look good. Three, you get stronger. It increases your joint stability, your bone density. Well, I suppose that's strength training, but strength training can lead into muscle building. Does lead to muscle building. It's going to improve your what's the word I'm looking for? Your overall. Oh fucking hell, man! Why is my brain not working this morning?
Quite funny.
Quality of life.
It's funny to watch.
Oh
I
my God.
feel like somebody had to put 50 pence in you there for a second. Just
Holy shit. The word quality just completely left my vocabulary there. But yeah, like muscle building, a lot of people, when they want to lose fat, they want to get more toned. That's a buzzword in the fitness industry. Doesn't actually mean anything. But yeah, I want to get toned, I want to get tighter, and without building any sort of muscle, you're not going to do that. You can lose fat, and if you're not kind of building or maintaining muscle mass, you're essentially just going to become a smaller version of the person that you already are. You won't you won't feel better. You're still going to feel, can we use the word fluffy? Um, you're still going to feel a wee bit there. So building muscle is massive in regards to making you feel better, look better, move better. So that's my take on why I'd want to build muscle. What's your take on it?
yeah, I feel that the word tone gets a bit of a hard time. I feel like it's a bit of a scapegoat over the last wee while because it's technically not actually a quantifiable thing, but we all know what fucking being toned means. So when somebody comes to me going, I want to be toned, I'm like, right, I've got a good idea what you mean. I do get more
Yeah.
in depth with it, but toned essentially for most people means that like your muscle looks like it is tensed at rest. So it looks like you do have some form of definition. So I think when most people want to look good, you don't just want to be a smaller version of yourself. You want to be the best possible shape. And like you can, like if we define fat loss is going to be controlled by how much you move on a day-to-day basis and the quality of your nutrition. That's why moving more, steps, moving, fidgeting, and calorie control, count your calories, is big for fat loss. You can dress that up in whatever way you want, but that is fat loss in a nutshell. When it comes to muscle building, going back to fat loss, we can do that without a gym. You can absolutely drop a lot of weight. I'm sure you all know, you're all listening. You have people who've lost great amounts of weight without ever going near the gym, and you ask them, it's like, oh, I've got a wee bit of health kick, I'm moving more, just doing my walks, and I'm whatever, eating whatever, even if they're not counting calories, they're just fucking eating better, right? When it comes to like, I'm sure we all know those people who, whilst they have lost a lot of weight, they might not look significantly better for it. They look just a smaller version of themselves. That's what happens, unfortunately, to a lot of people who lose weight. They just become a smaller version of yourself or themselves. And for most people, they want to be the best possible shape. So the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to that is building muscle. And when to build muscle, it is essentially get it. The biggest thing that will drive muscle mass is getting stronger. So things that cause it are total volume. Like you need to do a certain amount of exercise each week. So you don't like we couldn't say, Gary, we're going to do one set of bicep curls once a week, and no matter how hard intensity and how much you can recover from that, you're not hitting it frequently enough and you're not hitting it with enough volume. So the other two things are frequency and volume. You do need to go a certain amount of times per week. The science is fairly clear that going 3 times a week is more optimum than any other time, really. And spacing them out every 48 to 72 hours. And then having a certain amount of volume, which is 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, is optimal whilst pushing strength over time. Does that make sense? I went very sad.
Let's I No, no, let's talk about that for a wee bit. So, um, beginners in the gym, and there's obviously been quite a lot of research papers done on this as well. Beginners in the gym can probably get away with the 10 sets, but
Mm-hmm.
more kind of intermediate to advanced, they would need upwards of 20 sets to build muscle. Ideally, like Kyle said, you want to be hitting the muscle group at least 2 times per week, but if you can, 3 times per week, and obviously spacing them out to allow that rest and recovery, because without rest and recovery, you're doing your muscle building a massive, massive disservice. You were talking about kind of intensity. What about the optimal volume as well? So, reps per set. This is up for debate as well. Science research says between 6 to 12 reps. Some other people say between 8 to 12 reps. Some other people say don't go any lower than 5 reps. Um, what would your your understanding of the kind of research and science be surrounding that?
So you asked me this 5 years ago. My answer would be very different to what it is now. Uh, I would say for the audience listening, it doesn't really fucking matter. Realistically,
Mhm.
just going and getting stuff done is important. I'd say for most people, doing between 8 and 12 reps is the sweet spot. Dipping under it. So the reason I would dip under 8 reps is for more complex exercises like a squat, a deadlift,
Mhm.
even a bench press to an extent. And the reason for it is they're skill based, and when fatigue gets higher, movement quality starts to drop. If I was or you were to do a set of 10 deadlifts and you're trying to get stronger at it, it's very difficult for rep number 1. By the time you get to rep number 10, when fatigue starts to break down, let's say your hamstrings start to fatigue before your or say let's say your lower back starts to fatigue before your hamstrings, then all of a sudden your deadlift's going to start looking like buckaroos or Alibaba's bucking camel, and that's not really what we want because the fatigue like the risk profile is a lot higher. So again, that sounded very complex. To simplify that, I would say big movements, your barbell-based movements, we want to see a strength increase over time, but we want the movement quality to stay high. So I would say anything between, if you're talking about muscle building and not just like strength, like as in like an expression of strength, I would say anything between 4 and 6 reps. If it is the case where we're just trying to build muscle purely and we're doing it in pretty much any other exercise outside of a squat and deadlift, I would say like 8 to 12 reps is the sweet spot.
Banging. You broke that down extremely well.
The only thing I would say on that as well, because you do, when to get into really, really sciencey part of it, like you do get different types of muscle fiber, they do respond slightly differently to different things. I think for most people, like science itself is a bit fucked in the sense that like studies are done with either really undertrained people or really overtrained people. It's very rare that you
Mhm.
get something in the middle. If you extrapolate it, it doesn't actually it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Like again, you've got the can you do cardio and strength in the same day? It actually affects athletes this way, or it affects the general population this way. And the answers to both are completely different. And it's like, of course they are, because one's super trained in one and one's not trained at all. But
Mhm.
if you were to look at doing like I'm actually going to abandon that because I'm going to go on for about half an hour here. So I'm abandoning what I was going to say. I'm just, you know what, if I could be asked editing it out, I would. But you know what, I'm just going to go down 8 to 12 reps. The time under tension is the big thing, really. That's the
Yeah.
drawer of muscle. So the reason that 1 to 3 reps wouldn't be great for you is because it's very difficult to think science-wise. Again, which I've just said is a lot of shite, but 30 seconds really is how long you want to keep a muscle under tension for it to break down enough for you to get the response that you want. Usually, the reason that 10 reps would be good for that is if you spend 3 seconds on the way down, 1 second on the way up, you're getting 40 seconds, which covers the 30 seconds time under tension that you need. Very difficult to get that on a free reps because realistically, if you're doing 3 seconds per rep, you're doing 9 seconds. You're missing out on 20 seconds time under tension. That's why
Hmm.
8 to 12 reps is a lot better. Keeping a tempo. Tempo for MD listening is just the speed at which you do it. Realistically, going a little bit slower on the eccentric, which is usually the lengthening part, which is usually the way down on any sort of exercise. So that's kind of,
Aye. Aye. And just touching on that as well, like a lot of people miss out on so many gains in the downward part of the movement. A lot of people like gravity kind of do the work for them. For example, a bench press. I mean, I see it a lot with people in the gym because people are very, very new to exercising. Like the people I coach in the gym, and if they're doing a bench press, for example, it just fires down, and then they're trying to kind of stimulate that tension, stimulate the muscle, get the tension at the bottom of the rep, and they struggle to push it back up. And that's just because they haven't got the tension at the top of the movement, controlled the downward part of the movement, and then being able to kind of generate that force to push the barbell up. And it's the same with a squat as well. I've seen people just plummet to the fucking floor, just letting gravity do the work. There's no tension in the muscle, and the muscle isn't working on the way down. But yeah, people are doing themselves a massive disservice by missing out or slowing down the downward part of the movement. It's not an easy thing to do. You might, like, if you've been training for a wee while, you might find that you have to dial the weight back a wee bit if you start to control that downward part of the movement. So don't let it put you off. It's very, very important. Dial it back if you have to. Get good at the downward part of the movement, and I guarantee you uh, start to see some gains, some progress.
well, actually, it's it's a false mentality you're getting yourself in as well. Because as much as it feels after you put in such an effort, let's take a shoulder press, for instance. Take a shoulder press and you rocket the weight up, and you're like, well, I've done really well. I've done the hard part. And then you just let gravity bring it down. The problem with you not having tension on the way down, because it's not you that's controlling it on the way down, it's gravity. It becomes unpredictable in which line it's moving, so it can move forward, back, and actually that's usually where a joint becomes unstable. And when things are unstable at the bottom, you then have to work twice as hard to then regain stability on the way up, because otherwise you're going to be like the line's going to be all over the shop. So you're actually making it really, really difficult for yourself. So as much as dialing it back for a week or two just to really hold. And we're not talking you need to go to the point where you see bodybuilders and they're taking like super, super slow on the way down and they're driving up. Like, I mean, whilst that can be helpful and you're really under control, you're literally talking like 2 to 3 seconds on the way down, 1 second on the way
Yeah.
up. Like, I was about to say it's not rocket science. I've got very sciencey, so it does sound like it is rocket science, but realistically, it's just slower on the way down, faster on the way up.
Aye, that's it. Slow down, fast up. That's all you need to remember.
Slow down,
Um,
fast
and
up.
you touched on you want to be seeing kind of gradual increases in strength as well, and I think this is important too because a lot of people that I know will go in, lift the same amount of weight for the same reps, for the same sets, and wonder why they're not seeing any sort of progress. And you do want to be progressively overloading if you can on a weekly basis. It's not always going to happen on a weekly basis because let's say you are increasing your deadlift by 1.25 kilos each week. If that was super consistent, you're going to be the world's strongest man in a couple of years' time. So the progress, the speed at which you progress will start to slow down. But progressively overloading doesn't always have to look like adding more weight to the bar. It could be the number of repetitions you do in a single set. You could add an extra rep on. That's you increasing the overall volume, which is in itself progressively overloading. You could increase the frequency that you do that exercise. instead of doing it once a week, you can maybe do it twice a week. Again, that's progressively overloading because you're increasing the overall volume. And that's going to challenge your whatever muscle group it is you're working on, and it's going to promote growth in that muscle group. So bench press again, for example, let's say you go from, you know, 3 sets of 8 to then 3 sets of 10, bang, progressively overloaded. Amazing. Let's say you've maxed out your 3 sets of 12, but you feel like the next jump up in weight is too much. Maybe throw in a fourth set, or do bench press again on another day during the week. Let's say you're doing it on a Monday, try it again on a Thursday or a Friday.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
100%. I also think when it comes to progressive overload, and there's two different things you need to look at. A lot of people will do one or two things. There used to be, and again, I don't want to be, this is before women were really into lifting weights, but there used to be the men tend to go too heavy too quickly, and women tend to stay too light for too long. And you probably could find that, and still in most gyms, you see men lifting weights for their ego in the sense that they're doing bicep curls, where essentially they're just letting momentum float back and forth. And you'll see women that, again, when I used to do PT, and you'd again be helping people with weights, and like, that's too heavy for me. It's like, there needs to be an element of that. Like I worked in a gym, what was it, 10 years ago? I went to go and visit the gym quite recently. And it's like you see the same people doing the same thing. And
Mhm.
literally, if anything, because of the elements of time, they're not actually looking any better. They actually look worse. And they've got older, but it's just because they're doing the same routine. And that's fine if that's what you want. But realistically, if you do a 5K once a week, as in like running, you're going to get very good at doing a 5K, but you're never going to be getting any better at that. And it's the same with progressive overload. And it's like you can, and the science is clear. For the first 2 years of lifting weights and being progressive, like you could theoretically make gains for 2 years consistently, just linearly. So linearly progressing. So you don't need to do anything fancy. You could theoretically, if it boiled down to it, if you had a program that consisted of 10 to 20 reps per muscle group and you followed that for 2 years and progressively overloaded it, the science would say that you would get, for the majority of people, would see progress for a period of 2 years before you had to do anything differently. So what you're missing is consistency, frequency, volume, and intensity. They're the four things you need. Job's a good
I
one.
love it. What about how to fuel muscle building? Protein intake. The numbers that I've kind of read into is anywhere between 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. I don't know the pounds variation of that. Is it 0.7 to 1
I,
point something?
I maybe start talking pounds. I'm like, I don't know. Even when people speak to me in stone, I'm like, I have not a fucking clue.
Yeah, I know. I'm 10 stone 9, so what's that in real weight?
I know that roughly 10 stone is about 64 kilos, and there's about 6 kilos per stone, but I can work out very loosely what between 10 and 12 stone is, and slightly under that, but otherwise I'm using a calculator. Um,
Aye.
but yeah, no, 100%. To be honest, mate, see when you said, you asked the question, how do you fuel muscle gain? Is that what you asked? I,
Yeah.
I thought you said, how do you feel muscle gain? I was like, has he seriously asked that question? I was ready for cancelling the top 5% of podcasts, mate. I was like, nah, that says, how do you feel it? To
Just
fuel
need to wake up in the morning and just do a wee flex, a wee
it.
tit flex.
So, well, there's two things to say on this because I think for most people, they are stuck in a bit of a rock and a hard place where they're like, I've got body fat to lose, I don't feel comfortable. So, realistically, what does fuel muscle mass the best is putting them in an environment where muscle can grow, which is usually a calorie surplus, so you're getting more calories than your body needs, puts you in a very anabolic state. The bigger issue with that is it is next to impossible to gain muscle mass and muscle tissue without accruing some form of fat if you're in a surplus. Like you're
Yeah.
it's very difficult to do that. Now, if you gained 4 kilos of weight and three of them were muscle and one of them was fat, you would take that every day of the week for most people because it's very difficult to put on that amount or percentage of muscle mass. So it is, however, possible to gain strength and muscle and lose fat at the same time. It's just more difficult, but that's where you need to make sure protein is higher, and that's
Yep.
why you need to make sure that training quality is still high. So the two biggest drivers of muscle gain are going to be training intensity, being progressive over time. Because realistically, strength has the biggest correlation towards muscle mass. Like you could run a marathon. Let's say you'd never ran in your life. You could train to run a marathon, run the marathon, and your body composition might not look any different at all. However, if you were untrained and you started leg pressing and your leg press started off at 40 kilos, but then 4 months later was 140 kilos, you're going to look significantly different for being able to do that. The person who stands in front of you at 140 versus 40 is going to be very different. To fuel it, you need protein wise, like I always try to overshoot it. So ideally, you look
Yeah, me too.
at, I would say like 1.8 to 2.2 grams is usually, I don't have people really below that if we are looking at some
Hmm.
sort of strength. Like if the goal is just fat loss and there's no strength training involved, yeah, the protein can be lower than that. But I think for gaining strength, muscle, 1.8 to, I don't really have a cap on it. Like genuinely, I would say like
Yeah.
there, if you
I
can
think
push
that's just like
through,
the most optimal range that you want to be in, kind of minimally. But I actually got a question asked to me a couple of weeks ago for one of my clients in the gym. Can you eat too much protein in one meal? Now he only eats 2 meals a day, so he's essentially getting his full whack of protein between these 2 meals and one snack. Um, and I think unless you've got kidney issues or problems with your insides, then you're fine to eat 90 grams of protein in one sitting. If that was the case, if there was a cap on it, then you wouldn't be able to have a fucking ribeye steak, a big, massive, juicy steak, because that's quite high in protein, quite high in calories. So I'm the same as you. I don't really have a cap on how many grams to get in per day. Obviously, for me personally, the more the better because it keeps you feeling more satiated for longer, especially if you're in a fat loss phase. And you're trying to build kind of muscle at the same time, so the more the better. But even if you're in a calorie surplus, and quickly touching on calorie surplus, how much of a surplus would you put if they weren't in a fat loss phase, if they were just in a muscle building phase solely, how many calories a day would you put them in a surplus? I would go anywhere between 3 to 500. That's me personally. What about you?
it's very dependent on how much. I more use the metric of how much weight are they gaining. So like your body, unless you're assisted with any performance enhancing drugs, like you're typically most people can only put on 0.1 to 0.5% of their body weight per week. Usually I would start them, yeah, let's be honest, it is between 3 and 500. I very rarely go to 500.
Hmm.
Not to start off with anyway, but again, like even expenditure and calorie surplus is like nobody really fucking knows how much expenditure anybody's doing on
Yeah.
a day-to-day basis. It's all a bit of guesswork. So, to go back to your guy about how much protein can you take in any whatever, honest answer, nobody fucking knows. Like realistically, like nobody knows. There's no hard and fast evidence to say that there is or there isn't. I would probably like what is true is protein synthesis and having several windows throughout the day has been shown to be optimal. So like ideally having
Yep.
between I think it's 4 to 6 protein windows per day. So what does that translate to? Have 4 to 6 protein servings per day spaced out 2 to 5 hours apart is optimal. If, and again, this is where we start to get into what's optimal versus people's lives. If the guy is stuck to 2 meals a day and he's not willing to change that, and he's not going to have a protein shake, and he's not going to have a protein bar, and he's not going to have a protein yogurt, and he's not going to have any fucking source of protein outside these 2 meals, would I rather that person if he weighed 90 kilos and we're looking for 2 grams of protein per whatever? Would I be comfortable with him having 90 grams of protein per meal? Fucking right, I would. Have 90 grams of
Aye.
protein per meal. I would rather you do that because realistically, your calories and protein are like workers in the body, and providing there's jobs for them to do, they become effective. So I would rather ship 90 workers in at one time to get the work done rather than being understaffed and being shafted.
What an analogy that was, by the way. That was fucking top tier. That
And,
is S tier analogies right there.
and do you know what the great thing about protein people get sometimes a wee bit too, and I also don't want to take away from the fact that I think a lot of people listening, there is a tendency to be able to overcomplicate all this. Like realistically, if we
Yes.
simplify all of this is train ideally 2 to 4 times a week. Try and
Mhm.
get a minimum of 8 to 12,000 steps per day. Try to be in either a calorie deficit of 250 to 500 calories a day or a calorie surplus, depending on your goal, of about the same. Like realistically, count your fucking calories. I'm not, let's even take it out. Just fucking count your calories. Go to the gym
Mhm.
2 to 4 times a week. Try and get stronger, try and get a decent amount of protein in. Like, even that sounds overcomplicated. But with that said, like, don't worry about, oh, I'm having 50 grams of protein rather than 40 grams of protein. I read a research article once that said you can only consume 40 grams of protein. Fuck your article.
But yeah, article. But mate, you summarised it pretty well there. Just to clarify as well, you still can build muscle when you're in a calorie deficit. So
Yep.
if you're looking to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, it can happen. It just takes a wee bit longer. It's maybe not the most optimal way to build muscle, but it still can happen. And you do need a hell of a lot more patience with regards to it. Whereas if you went into a calorie surplus, you would build muscle a wee bit more optimally, a wee bit more quicker. But on the flip side of that, you would gain a wee bit of body fat at the same time. It comes hand in hand. It's part of the process, unfortunately. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that as well because I think you summarised that up extremely well. And I think that's a good. Sorry, you want to say something?
I was just going to say two other things on that. Like muscle will change your life in the sense that like
Hmm.
once you gain muscle, it's very difficult to lose it. Like the research is fairly clear. Like it takes you longer to build it, but once you have it, it is very difficult to lose. And ultimately, muscle is one of the biggest indicators. There is a correlation between how long you live and how much muscle mass that you have. Muscle creates movement. It's got a whole host of things it can do, but also because muscle has a weighted value to it, realistically, your body has to work harder to maintain muscle, which means you burn more calories at rest. It's not as much calories as everybody thinks it is, but realistically, you do have a decent amount of muscle mass that you can ultimately eat more calories, and the deficit to which burning calories, like I can comfortably diet on 2,200 calories, and I drop weight.
Hmm.
I've actually a deficit for me sometimes has been 2,400 calories, which to some people, like 2,400 calories, they'd be like, fuck, that's a surplus. I'd be putting on weight with that. Whereas, like, for me, it's like, sure, I can have 4 meals a day, like 400 or 500
Hmm.
calories each and not stress about it. Like, that's not the same for people, but that's also because I've been training for 14, 15 years, more than that now. My
Hmm.
dad's old dumbbells, could lift them before he could. Providing that Tony is my dad. But anyway, that's the story for another day. But yeah, no, I think when it comes to like the other thing, again, this could be a topic for another discussion, a discussion for another topic, whatever. Right? It's when you get to a point where you chase fat loss that much, and I've got clients who've done this as well, and I've been driving this car myself. When you get to a point where you have dropped body fat, body fat, body fat, it's a very addictive thing to do. And when you like a deficit is actually one of those things that when you see progress pictures change, scale weight changes, you're feeling good, you're getting compliments from people, you feel good with your top off or whatever that is, you feel good on the beach. Energy levels are high, food's good. The bigger issue with that is you get stuck to that, and chasing zero on a scale is not really something
Yeah.
you're after. And realistically, a fat loss phase, as much as it's fun, and most people see really good results on it, between 3 and 5 months of doing that, like there should be a clear, this is where it ends. And at that
Yeah.
point, there does need to be like, whilst you can maintain that level of leanness to a point, um, you are going to limit at that point how much muscle mass you can build if you don't start fueling for it. And a lot of people get stuck in the I am a certain weight. I now identify as that weight because I know being heavier, I didn't like myself at that point. I'm not going to go backwards, and they accumulate even just a small increase in scale as going backwards. And it's a very tough mindset to get out of. But what is
Yeah.
important is flipping the switch to looking at strength metrics. are going to be the thing that you look at rather than just scale weight. Training performance in the gym. Energy wise, I think still understanding that whilst the small amount of body fat will be put on, if I got to my leanest and genuinely was told the outcome would be you put on 6 kilos and 3.5 of them, so 60% of it's going to be muscle, 40% fat. I genuinely would take that, like genuinely would, because it's
Hmm.
easy to get rid of body fat. Well, simple, not easy. And it's quite difficult to put on muscle mass. Does that make sense?
Aye, aye, 100% makes sense. And I think it's important to point out as well, like a lot of, especially I find it with women as well, like they're all about, I need to lose weight to get toned, I need to lose weight to feel better. See, like flip the switch, start focusing on building muscle because you at 70 kilo with a higher percentage of body fat to you at 70 kilo with a higher percentage of muscle mass are going to look like two completely different people. You might actually find yourself being happy at 70 kilo with some muscle mass on you because it's giving you that kind of toned and tighter look. You're going to feel stronger, you're going to move more, you're going to move better. So it's not always about just losing body fat and getting as light as fucking physically possible. Build muscle, get stronger. You're going to feel better for it. You're going to look better for it, and you might actually find, or you might actually come to terms with, "Do you know what? The number in the scale doesn't fucking matter to me."
Here's actually a thing as well. It's quite a bit of a shock for people. Most people, when they lose weight, they don't actually look how they envisioned in their head because they don't have the muscle mass to start off.
Yeah.
And you'll typically find that a lot with people who don't go to the gym. And again, I coach a lot of people, and I think actually, without getting myself tied in knots here, someone who is extremely overweight, one of the most beneficial things they can do is lose weight. Like, let's not worry too much. If they don't want to go to the gym right now and that's too intimidating, 100%, get out there, get your steps. That's going to,
Hmm.
again, help massively in terms of just you moving. Let's look at your food. Let's drop 20 kilos because that's going to be the most important thing for your health. Then look at muscle mass. But if you're
Yes.
somebody who, yeah, let's say you're carrying a little bit of body fat, but have never been to a gym in your life or whatever, one of the most important things you can do is start getting stronger in the gym and start putting on muscle mass. Because then when you do, because if you're listening to this, you probably have tried following diets before and realize that you get to a point where it's either over restrictive or even the way when you've got results, you don't like the way you look anyway. So you're like, what's the fucking point? So like one of the most long-term beneficial things that you can do, and nobody likes long-term because it's not sexy, but is just actually go to the gym. Like, and go to the gym, like, as I said, 3 times a week for me is the best for most people.
Hmm.
I don't train anybody. I train everybody from office workers to athletes, and I don't train anybody more than 4 times a week, really. Like I just think it's a bit like you're just detracting from. If you're training 5 times a week, I think actually the intensity that you get out of 5 times a week, if you look at the data, you're actually it's like a false narrative where actually you're probably better numbers wise doing 4 times a week because you can recover better from it. But 3 times a week is optimal, yes. 2 times a week you can still make great progress. I've coached many people who've trained 2 times a week, providing that the volume and intensities are like you can get good results with that as long as it's progressive.
Hmm.
That's all I'd say. 2 times a week. Fucking get to the gym, do it
Right.
consistently. 2 years, your life will change.
100%. And I think the consistency side of things is extremely, extremely important as well because it is going to take a good bit of hard work. It is going to take a good bit of, blood, sweat, and tears, shall we say. But you will be, you know, if you, let's say you start going to the gym just now, you've never been in a gym in your life, you start going to the gym just now, 2 years' time, you're going to look back and go, so fucking glad I started going to the gym. Nobody ever regrets going in, or nobody ever feels bad. Fucking start that one again. Nobody ever feels worse after working out than they did before it. The thought of doing something is always worse than actually doing it. So I stop fucking about and get it done.
Low clap for Gary there. Well done, mate. You got that
Oh,
out.
I so glad I get through it, man. In my head, like I was saying 25 different things and my lips just couldn't keep up.
100%. I think like the only other thing that I was going to add, and I've never actually done this before, but I was like, if you're listening to this, because I know that what we've said, as much as I'm like, oh, it's really simple. For me and you, it's really simple. For
Yeah,
anyone listening, as
100%.
much as we've tried to simplify it, you may have listened to this and go, I'm actually still a little bit lost and confused as to what to do. Reach out to myself or Gary, and we'd be happy. We'll do it for free. We can fucking set you up with a program, just point you in the right direction
Mhm.
as to this is where you go. And genuinely, like we've between us got years in the game, so just reach out to us, send a message. More than happy to help. Just point you in the right direction. Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. And on that note, Kyle, where can they find you to reach out to you?
Kyle underscore biofitness1 and Gary, where can they find you?
At GMAC underscore health and fitness. And if you're sorry, if you're listening or watching on Spotify, don't forget we've got a YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget we are on Spotify as well. I thought I would plug that as well. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we will have this theme tune up and running. Absolutely buzzing to hear
I've just stopped talking about it, mate, because I promised about
it.
episodes ago we'd have it and it's not here. So I'm just going to.
You promised on episode 29 that we'd have it by episode 30.
I wonder what the legal implications for us just stealing EastEnders theme tune and sticking it on at the front would be.
Telling you, I've been tempted to just get a wee tune up on Spotify and just hold it to the microphone.
Karaoke,
uh,
LaRue in for the kill.
aye. Fuck's sake, it's taking me back. Anyway, listen, I need to wrap this one up here because I have got skirting boards to detach from the wall.
Say no more, we'll not put people to sleep. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll
Brilliant.
see you later. Bye.
Catches on next week.